Hey guys, what's up? Today's gospel passage is John chapter 12, verses 27 through 33. In today's gospel passage, we see some Greeks, and they approach Andrew, a disciple of Jesus, and together they go and try to find Jesus. They just want to see him. But it's at this moment where Jesus prophesies his death, his resurrection, his ascension, all of it. And throughout all of this, he just has an absolute and firm belief in why he was brought into the world. We see this. And we know that death is not exactly the most pleasant fate, especially not by crucifixion of all ways. But for some reason, he's standing firm. He's actually glorifying the Lord's name throughout all of this, even when he's met face to face with death. And we know that is going to be a very long and painful one at that. Sometimes I ask myself, as I was reading this especially, would I have the courage to accept what hardships God has planned for me? Sometimes when I'm in the midst of the hardship, I say, okay, God has something better planned out for me. But if I knew what that hardship was before going into it, would I accept it like Jesus did? Jesus, he knew what he was getting into. He knows the immense pain that he's about to go through. And he didn't take what his plan was, what the purpose was as a reassurance. He took it as, this is God's will, and I will do it because it's God's will. And he knows that he's going to be crowned the heavenly prince of the Most High. But rather than reassuring himself of that, he's just glorifying the Lord's name. He knows what God's will is, and he's just going for that. He knows that he's the very Son of God who was brought to this world for this very purpose. And sometimes when we're met with these obstacles and trials that God puts in our ways, it's like we tend to back out a little bit. Sometimes I'm like, oh God, I'm sorry. Like, that's not the hardship I wanted. That's a little too much for me. But it's in this time where we're called to be like Jesus, where we have to understand that there is a purpose for each and every hardship that we go through, even before we go through those hardships. As we go through those hardships, to glorify his name. And that was the biggest takeaway for me throughout this Lenten reflection. Thank you for listening.